Hi, my name is Jake Mutchler, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Battle of Gettysburg. That's what I did my research paper over, and I'm going to be mentioning some of the major impacts it had on U.S. history. Um, this battle took place during the midst of the Civil War, and it was a clash between the Union and the Confederacy armies. Um, it was an unintentional conflict where the Confederates, led by General Robert E. Lee, were trying to invade the North and create a stronghold for themselves. They went into the town of Gettysburg to try and collect supplies, and unintentionally ran into General George E. Meade's army. Um, this is where a 3 day standoff took place, and over 50,000 men were killed, injured, or missing in action. Um, the first day was kind of a stalemate. It had a certain level of Confederate success. They were able to initialize the position. However, the Union was able to take the high ground, which gave them major strategical advantages. Um, so that's how day one ended. Day two began with General Robert E. Lee for the Confederates trying to break through the Union flanks. So essentially, the Union was stationed upon hills in a line shape, and General Lee was trying to get around in order to collapse the Union forces. These attacks were very fierce, chaotic. It was gruesome hand-to-hand combat, and there were heavy losses on both sides, but the Union was able to hold firm. Um, General Robert E. Lee eventually decided that because of the Union's position and his inability to damage their lines from the flanks, a central attack after a series of bombardments to weaken fortifications would be his best course of action. And he organized this for day three. And day three began with him getting together around 13,000 Confederate soldiers with 6 different generals to lead a charge directly into the Union lines. Beforehand, however, over 150 cannons fired onto the Union lines for almost 2 hours, trying to just weaken any sort of infrastructure that they had built up over the past 2 days. Unfortunately, the Confederate cannons, while they did cause some damage, it wasn't a significant enough amount to seal their fate in the battle. And the Union actually pulled off a very good conservation strategy where instead of firing back, they decided to save their ammunition and their cannons for when the Confederates eventually charged them. This charge is actually known as Pickett's Charge. And when it commenced, the Union immediately began opening fire, using all the conserved ammunition they had stored up. And it was, to say it was a bloodbath is an understatement. More than half of the Confederates of the 13,000 men died out on that field. The rest retreating, and a very slim amount made it to the Union lines, but they were quickly apprehended or killed in action. The consequences of the battle, like I said previously, over 50,000 men were killed, injured, or missing in action, making this the deadliest engagement in the Civil War and American history. This was what many historians consider to be the turning point in the war. General Robert E. Lee, who had previously had many successes throughout the war and was considered a brilliant tactician, had a retreat to Virginia. General Meade had the opportunity to chase after him. However, he did not take this. He felt that there had been enough bloodshed over the past 3 days, and in turn, this battle essentially became a psychological morale boost for the Union, only building up momentum for the rest of the war. And this battle matters long term, not just in the Civil War, but for the rest of U.S. history, because based on the idea that it's a turning point, with the eventual Union victory of the Civil War, bringing the Confederate States of America, the South, back to make the United States of America. I mean, it has numerous effects: economic, freedom of slaves, all sorts of civilian impacts, medical aftermath. The economy began to boost. A lot of conflicts had to be resolved in order to progress as a country. So it was a difficult period, but it was something that had to be done based on the climate of our culture.